Welcome to AstroChat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monika Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits, or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another AstroChat. Today, we have the trifecta of myself, Kimberly Williams, Monika Anna, and Anne Sundell. Hooray! The three of us are all together at one time. I'm so looking forward to this episode with y'all.
Trifecta, or Witches of Eastwick.
Which is what?
However, each Witches of Eastwick.
Witches of Eastwick. Yeah. Oh, okay. I like your analogy. I was thinking about the races, so.
No, I was talking about the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting how words have different meanings.
True.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in. I know that we're all pressed for time today, so let's go into our topic for today, which is the upcoming new moon on May 7th. It'll be happening here in the central time zone of the U.S. at 10:22 p.m. And then I'm thinking across the pond, that means in England it'll be at 4:22 in the morning on the 8th. And then 6:22 a.m. in Finland. So, of course, as always, feel free to convert that to the time zone of wherever you live as you're watching us. We're dealing with a moon that's going to be at 18 degrees of Taurus. My favorite new moon of the year, the new moon in Taurus. So 18 degrees. And let me go ahead and pull up the chart real quick, and we'll just give some highlights of what's going to happen during the 2 weeks between this new moon and our next full moon, which will be on May 23rd at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. All right, so here we go. As you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, if not, feel free to listen along on podcast. We're looking at a new moon at 18 degrees, 2 minutes of Taurus. And some exciting things are happening in this lunation that we'll be going into in a second. During the 2 weeks between this lunation and the next full moon, as I was saying, we're going to be looking at 2 retrogrades. Pluto actually just went retrograde. Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius days before, on the 2nd of May, went retrograde. And during this retrograde over the summer, it'll make its final pass through the tail end of Capricorn, which I'm sure we'll get to in future episodes. Also, if you work with the asteroid Ceres will be going retrograde on the 14th. We have interesting planets, a lot of planets changing signs, interestingly, because everything pretty much is direct and has been direct, right? We keep talking about since the beginning of the year, we had Mercury retrograde for a tiny bit, and now Pluto has just gone retrograde, but the majority of planets have been in direct motion for a really extended period of time, which is so unusual. So we see that Mercury will be moving into Taurus here on the 15th. Of course, the Sun will be entering Gemini later in the month on the 20th. Venus will be close behind that Sun entering Gemini on the 23rd. And just after the next full moon on the 25th, Jupiter, traveling through the tail end of Taurus right now, will be entering Gemini as well. So a lot that is happening and some exciting aspects. But first, before we dive into breaking it all down, Anne, I think you were going to give us a lead-in to the Sabian symbol for this lunation.
Yes, thank you. And even this moon is 1802. We're converting it to 19 degrees of the Sabian symbol. And that will be a new continent rising out of the ocean, which I think is very well connected to the new moon, but also to other new phases that has been taking place and is taking place right now. So that we're going to go more into, but this is a good symbol for creating new things and visualizing new things and beginnings and so on.
I love that image. I really do. The idea of the continent rising. It's not just land rising up, it's a continent. It feels so Taurus, very solid and stable, and the structure coming up and the earth energy, and yet it's rising. It makes me wonder what new things we will be creating. It almost feels like, I think I said earlier, if you take that idea of the Sabian symbol and you merge it with some of the aspects we're going to be talking about here in a second, it feels to me like the impossible dream we've been wanting to build for so long. It doesn't feel so impossible anymore. Like now is the time where we can really manifest, manifestation, continents rising, create what it is that we are envisioning.
And how big and solid that vision is something that's been there underneath. It's not something just run into your mind. It's something that has a foundation somewhere that you just didn't maybe have the possibility to manifest yet. And it's really, it's a huge thing.
Yeah, yeah. Thinking about it karmically, it's almost like whatever it is that has been our purpose, that was, as you say, was already there. It's now coming up to the surface. It's now breaking through that barrier between our conscious and unconscious for us to utilize. Okay, and Monika, do you want to take us into talking about the fact that we have the moon in Taurus, our annual new moon in Taurus? I know that this is something near and dear to your heart.
I think we mentioned before we started recording that it is a beautiful new moon. I mean, new moon in Taurus, spring, especially in obviously on the northern hemisphere, the spring is awakened, everything is in bloom, everything, the scents, the colors, it's really out there. And it's usually the time of the Taurian time where the sun is in Taurus, and especially when the new moon is in Taurus, is the time for me of refreshing things, of actually seeing the world for the beauty that it is. Taurian new moon is all about body and beauty and our five senses. Taurus really as an archetype teaches us to experience the world through our five senses. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we touch? What do we smell? And there is no better time to experience that than in spring, when you have the sound of birds kind of mating and you have the beauty of colors coming into bloom. So I absolutely adore this new moon. And it's really interesting in combination with that Sabian symbol talking about Taurus, because Taurus is a fixed sign. It's an earth sign. And fixed signs, they get this rap that they are unmovable, that nothing, they're stubborn, they're fixed, nothing moves. And especially Taurus, as an archetype, we kind of tend to think of Taurus that there is no change there. But when you think about a new continent rising out of the ocean, or you think about what happens to our planet, how the Himalayan mountains kind of came to be because two plates basically are talking to one another, that is Taurian change. It might be slow, it might take years or hundreds of years or thousands of years or millions of years, but that's the Taurian change. Taurus does changes, but Taurus changes with nature. Taurus changes with natural cycles and natural time. The mountains do not come out in a day or two, but actually some of the continents, or maybe not continents, but some of the islands might come up in a day or two. When we have volcanic eruptions, some of the islands can be destroyed by that, or actually they can rise out of the oceans pretty quick. So I would not underestimate the change that Taurus plans, and it's the change that cannot be stopped. Like the mountains, like the Himalayan, you can't just say, "What stop?" Like it's enough. It's no, that change will be coming and it will be happening. And I think with the Taurus and the Taurian energy, it's like again going back to nature, like the spring. You can't just say to spring, "Stop for a minute." Like, can we take a pause for a week or two? The moment that's rolling, that's it. So when I hear that the Taurian people do not change, I always like smile to myself, like, no. When Taurus begins to change, there is no way of stopping that change. There is like a choo-choo train. There's like a ball in a china shop. I'm going for that change. I might be slow to start. When we have the spring, I always feel like you look at the window, it's miserable and it's gray and everything is still in the bud. And then you look at the window again and everything is in blossom and you think, oh my God, when did that happen? It's that moment where the moment the seed breaks and it breaks through the soil in spring, it just feels like that movement is really, really quick. And I feel like this is the same thing with the Taurian energy. Taurus will think and stop, and like it will consider all that, everything that needs to consider. But the moment decision is made about a change, there is no stopping it. It's going for it. And I love the new moon because in Taurus in general, this is for me the new moon of the year where planting seeds literally in your garden or metaphorically can really bring some beautiful blossom things into your life, where there is that feeling of refreshing, feeling of being one with nature. I mean, even if you're in the middle of the city or working in the office, you cannot miss the nature being awakened around you. And this is the moment where, coming from a winter, especially in the northern hemisphere, when that change of season is quite significant, coming from really darkness and harshness of winter to a spring, it's quite significant. It's quite shocking. I don't know if that's the word that I want to use, but it is. It's that moment where, oh my gosh, everything's just changed and everything is colorful. And going back to just the new moon, it's the moment, I think, of just stopping and having a moment of reflection and moment of visualization or manifestation about what is it that I want to do for my body and through my body as well as a vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, that idea of the physicality of living. Taurus to me is all about the associations with the earth, with our body, with money, with possessions and tangible things. It's the idea of living in this physical 3D reality and the world of matter, physical matter. It's what we can create, how we manifest abundance, how we manifest in general. I love that energy. I really like what you were saying though about how Taurus can get wrapped up with the inertia. And I think of that as kind of its a superpower. It's not about overcoming inertia. It's not about the boulders at the top of the hill and I'm pushing and pushing to get it rolling. It's really about sitting and being the boulder. Or once that boulder starts rolling, enjoying the ride, right? It's being in that period of rest, being in that period of movement. Taurus is about being in the moment of inertia. When I was a kid and my grandmother was trying to inform me about astrology because she was also an astrologer, she used to read me the story of Ferdinand the Bull. I don't know if you guys have it over there. It's a great children's story. And Ferdinand is this bull who is not interested in the bull tournaments, the bullfighting. It's just not, it wants to be in the field, smelling the flowers, languishing in nature, enjoying life. Very Taurian. And then suddenly there's the bee that comes and stings, and off it goes. Like the bull in the china shop takes off, runs through, is running faster than any of the bulls, gets in the bull ring, wins all the glory and the prizes for being the best bull ever, to paraphrase. And it just always sticks in my mind, that energy of either we are at rest or we are in motion when we are in Taurus. But it's not like we necessarily are need to be pushing against that or resisting against that, but rather being comfortable with being in that moment. And then I also think it's cool that there's a reason that we have certain holidays while the sun is in Taurus. Especially what stands out for me, Earth Day is placed while the sun is in Taurus. Beltane is placed while the sun is in Taurus. And even Mother's Day here in the United States, I know that has different dates in different countries, but to me it has something to do with what do you value. And there's always that correspondence, I feel, between the second sign of the zodiac and the second house in our charts. Even though they're different things, there's that common thread, if you will, of what is it that we really value? What do we hold dear?
That's good. And the value and motivation, I think, like after a lot in Aries, and Aries can be a bit like running around and just starting up all kind of stuff and not even being quite sure what's going on. And then Taurus comes and takes a look in peace, and what is it that needs persistence here? What's the value of this? What can we take and make work in practice and then sustainable and continue that, like that energy that never give up with when there's the motivation to do something that actually can go when everybody else maybe already gave up. Then Taurus is still like the one that's gonna have the stubbornness to continue, which is also needed.
I love languishing in this realm of Taurus energy and Taurus themes, but I suppose we should move forward and look at some of the aspects that are happening to this new moon that we experience in Taurus. I'll bring up the chart one more time briefly, just for people that need to get another glimpse of it. And here we go. All right, so you can see that we have a lot of energy in Aries and a lot of energy in Taurus with this chart. We've got Mars at 5 degrees Aries, North Node at 15, Chiron at 21, and Mercury at 21 Aries, all there. And then we also have so much energy in Taurus with Venus in her own sign, right? Conjunct the Sun, the Moon, Uranus, and Jupiter. It's quite a stellium we have going there. Outside of that, we have the North and South Node hanging out in the Aries Libra axis. And we have Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius, recently gone retrograde. We have Saturn at 17 degrees of Pisces. And we have Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. So, yeah, let me close that out and we'll start talking about what stands out. Obviously, it would take us hours to talk about everything that's here, but we're going to talk about some of the highlights. So the first thing that jumped off the page to me is that beautiful stellium, due to the fact that I also have a stellium in my natal chart. I'm always looking for them. And that whole energy of Venus, the Sun, Uranus, Jupiter in Taurus, and the Moon. The Moon is exalted, of course, when it's in Taurus. Venus is in her sign of rulership. It feels like this is just so strong. This, I think, is bringing forward a lot of this energy of what do you want to create? What is it you're manifesting? Sometimes when we think about this idea of manifesting, going back to something Anne said, it can often feel like, well, what do you need to do? You need to get out there and do. You need to be like very Aries oriented. You need to take action. But Taurus's idea of manifesting to me is different. This is especially when we're dealing with Venus and the Moon and Jupiter. It's what can you attract? This is if you can dream it, if you can visualize it, if you can hold that in your mind, if we can be free of doubt and disbelief and just hold it, then we can attract it. It's like the flower opening up and it attracts the worker bees. It doesn't have to do the work. It brings, so I think this is saying there's a lot of potential, especially with Venus and Jupiter, the two benefics being here. I think there's a lot of potential we have to really draw to us the resources we need, whether or not we know what those resources are. This is great for people that have a vision of something they're wanting to do or step into, but don't know how to do it. I don't know how to create it. I don't know what the step is. You don't have to know. You have to just focus on that end goal and attract to you the resources, the tools, the people, the knowledge, the steps we need to make it happen. And of course, the fact that Uranus is here as well, I think throws a bit of a monkey's wrench, as they say, into the mix. There could be the unexpectedness of, I thought I had the plan. I thought I did know what I needed and had it all mapped out. Things may not go according to plan because not only is Uranus here in Taurus, as it has been for years, but there's so much contact. I mean, we have Uranus recently had contact with Jupiter. They had their conjunction of every 15-year cycle. We're going to see that there's contact with the Sun. There's contact with the Moon. There's some sextiles happening with Neptune. So this is a very active placement, a very active month for that slow-moving Uranus transit that we've been experiencing. So I think this could be the month when things shake up. If we shake the tree, then the ripe fruit, those apples, may fall right into our lap. So there might be that the changes, the unexpectedness, the chaos, the disturbance to our plans could actually yield something positive for us once we get through dealing with the chaos of it. We also have a sextile happening, right, to Saturn. And we also have an inconjunct, one sign away from that opposition point, if you will, to the south node. And the energy on that south node really stands out for me because if you're looking at the chart, you're going to see that everything is bookended on one hemisphere, on one side of the chart. Everything from, Monika mentioned this earlier when we were having our pre-recording discussion, and you've got everything from Pluto to Jupiter all hanging out on one side of your chart. And then on the other side is the handle to this bucket, the south node, the south node in Libra. And if you work with points or asteroids like I do, Black Moon Lilith is really close to that south node. And when you're the handle of something, there's so much energy and weight on it to begin with. There's pressure, there's energy and intensity. And now we have that sun and moon making that inconjunct, forcing us, if you will, to make some kind of change, some kind of adjustment. I think of the inconjunct as the thing that's over here in your peripheral view, but you can't quite see it, just out of view. The only way I'm going to see my hand behind my head is if I turn my head or if I bring my hand forward. And that's what the energy of these planets is. Both have to move, both have to change. And of course, Taurus's biggest challenge is a resistance to change. And so we need to change something about the past, especially about the resentment, the anger, the old pain that maybe we've healed the pain, but we haven't let go of wanting some type of vindication. We haven't let go of needing to feel safe. And since it's in Libra energy, I'm thinking this is the past energies of what people have done to us or what we've done for other people. If we give our energy away, if we give our power away, either we give it willingly to others or our concern for others is so strong that it's kind of consuming and taking it away, then all of the energy in this chart, instead of staying with this beautiful conjunction of energy, there's the possibility of it going. It's like sucking the air out of a room in a way if we're dwelling too much on what has been. And of course, every new moon, the moon is so prominent that it can be a time of reminiscing and reflecting and melancholy if we're not careful. So I just get this sense that there's not a whole lot of air in this chart to begin with. And now one of those placements, the south node, is so prominent that it's almost like, are we giving our energy and our focus to all this Taurus movement, or are we letting the past suck that air right out of the room and dwindle those flames? And I haven't talked much about the Saturn aspect, but I'm going to pause there because I'm sure that Anne and Monika have a lot of thoughts about all of this.
So we just had to edit a little bit of this recording because Kimberly gave us space for both of us to talk and neither of us actually talked, which is absolutely hilarious. And it just speaks to the fact that every time we sit to record the new moon or full moon, even if it is days or weeks before the energy actually kicks in, for some reason we're picking up on that. So there is Leo and all of us, you're like, we're in the camera, we're really there. If it's Aquarius, it will be really quirky. And then the Taurus, and it's like, and it's just peaceful. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just enjoying myself and I don't even want to talk. So it's really funny how that energy is, how we're picking that up. So yeah. But going back to that new moon, I mean, I love that it is sandwiched as well, just in the Taurus. We mentioned the bigger sandwich, but the small sandwich is the Taurian one. Venus on one side, Jupiter on the other side, and in the middle we have the Uranus and the new moon. So, I mean, as sandwiches go, this is beautiful. You have two beneficial planets, two planets that speak about expansion and our values and beauty and desire, and they kind of cuddle that new moon. So for me, this is Kimberly, you mentioned, and Anna pointed out that earlier, that there's not enough air in this new moon, and I don't think that this new moon will be very airy. I don't think it will be very logical. There will be any thought in that. This new moon brings us back into our bodies, into our environments, to where we are. This new moon is very much about being sensual. And for me, again, this is not a good or bad thing. Sometimes we can be too much in our hands. Sometimes it's all about, I need to journal. I need to get my my thoughts on the papers. Sometimes it's about, what is it that logically I need to do? Do I need to schedule a ritual? Do I need to write my affirmation? And this new moon says, what? Just take a step back. Just do what we just did 2 minutes ago. just enjoy the moment, just enjoy your body. And you mentioned just a few minutes ago as well that there's the birds singing. We're recording here, and outside of your house there are birds singing. This is the invitation, I think, of this new moon. And it just shows us that the beauty, Venus, the expansion of Jupiter, this is actually happening around us. Literally, beauty and expansions happening in the northern hemisphere as we're expanding into summer, as the nature is just becoming more beautiful and more expanded. And it's interesting, like you say, that this new moon makes that aspect to the south node in Libra. So that Venus both rules the south node and rules the new moon. So that kind of uncomfortable and itchy aspect that normally we would consider between south node and the new moon can be maybe mitigated because Venus is then she's like, "Oh, I can help you guys communicate. I kind of you're in my houses, you're in my relationship. I can maybe help you communicate better." There is something about this new moon that invites us to reflect on the past relationships, South Node in Libra, on the past relationships that we have with other people. And I don't mean just romantic relationships, but in general, what are the relationships that we have, whether with our business partners, with our friends, with our family, intimate relationships that we have. And Moon in Taurus, do they bring pleasure? Do they add value to our life? Are those relationships something that we desire? If not, can we learn something from that to bring it and make a manifestation, plant that seed around new moon? For me, the new moon, actually, Kimberly, when you were mentioning the manifestation, for me, the new moon in Taurus is about growth, isn't it? It's not about this kind of airy visualization of fiery go get something. This is actually about growth. Like I know I can expand and grow. So yeah, this is very much about what are those relationships from the past that I can learn from? What are the relationships that I have around me that I can reevaluate? It's not a nice word, but I think reflect on, maybe that's the better word. Reflect on and see, Venus, do they bring me pleasure? And are those relationships that actually what I desire? Do they teach me about beauty? Are they do those relationships see my worth? Am I worthy in those relationships? Sometimes we feel like we're not enough. Again, as a friend, I might feel like I'm not enough, or as a business partner, or at work in relationships to my manager, I might feel like I'm not enough, or with my husband or my wife, I might feel like I'm not enough. So those are the questions that I think this new moon will be asking. And with the Jupiter and Uranus there, again, in that lovely little sandwich, there might be something unexpected. There might be something that will happen out of the blue that you didn't see it coming. But for me, with the Venus and Jupiter, it will always be sweetened. So even if it kind of comes in as a shock or as in like, oh, I didn't see that coming, I think Jupiter and Venus will make it better. So yeah. So that I think that's what I see with that little Taurian sandwich and that South Node.
There's a lot of really concentrated energy in one place here. And I always think like when it's a lot of concentration on some place, it might be a bit like this. We're not like seeing everything. Or it might tip over to the other sign, to the opposite sign, which is Scorpio on the other side. But when I think about like the things you mentioned to Monika about what brings value, what's important, like Taurus is also a sign that's very realistic, down to earth. That's also a sign that can be also calculating. I mean, what do I earn from this? What is in it for me here? So this can also be about to really think about which relationships are the ones where I gain something, or how do I mean, it can be a very like sharp edge with things like possession, like money, like having to make decisions about which things are the ones I need to concentrate on here, or which things can I grow or can I expand in those areas. But we are still talking about an earth sign, so it can be very practical too.
Yeah. And the sextile that the end of that sandwich is making, the the sextile to Neptune that we're going to see with Jupiter and later in the next 2 weeks with the Sun, they're all happening at 29 degrees. Right? It's a 29 of Taurus to 29 of Pisces, which is often referred as the Anaretic degree. And there's interesting pros and cons to the idea of being at 29. 29 degrees is the last degree of any sign, right? And so it's just kind of like you've been taking a class for the entire year and it's the last week and the teacher's like, have you learned the lessons? There's pressure of what is it that we need to get and understand about it. And there can also be, in addition to this pressure, the fact that for a lot of traditions in astrology, it's considered to represent the nature of Mars, as Mars being kind of viewed as the lesser malefic, bringing misfortune, bringing challenges. But there's also this idea that you're about to graduate, you're about to move into the next sign. So there's this attitude of maybe this is where we've mastered some maturity about the themes involved. So I kind of feel like it can go any of those ways. It's going to really depend on how we're working that Jupiter. Are we working Jupiter to expand our Neptunian dream? Are we working that Jupiter to put our energy of the sun out into the world? Are we shining our light? Are we expanding? Or are we waiting? Are we in that beautiful Taurus flower field and we're just sitting there and we're waiting the opportunity? Somebody gives us the opportunity to speak, but we're both sitting there waiting to see who wants to go first. To use our own analogies. I had a teacher one time who always talked about Jupiter. Everyone says how it's so wonderful. So many astrologers really tout it, and certainly it is amazing in what it can bring. But the key is it brings opportunity, but opportunity is only an opportunity if we are willing to seize it. If we see the opportunity and we grasp that opportunity and utilize it and take advantage of it. So in spite of it bringing so many amazing, beautiful, positive, peaceful energies, I think there's the challenge of, and am I seeing the gift here? And am I utilizing the gift? Or am I simply enjoying the moment and not taking advantage of what this moment is bringing, not taking advantage of the resources that are coming before us this month?
I think it's the overindulgence, isn't it? I think there was a research done, I don't remember if it was the UK or somewhere, where they were checking where people who won a lottery are now after like 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, a lot of people that have won a significant amount of money, which you would think, oh my God, this is such a Jupiterian blessing, turns out that actually it was a curse because they are now worse off than they were before because they expanded beyond the realms of maybe Saturn, beyond what was reasonable or kind of structured, and they just overindulged and they lost the sight of reality, Saturn, and they went a little bit too far. So I like that Saturn is actually having that sextile with new moon and saying it's okay to have a cake from time to time. It's okay to enjoy and spend, I don't know, money on then like a nice spa or nice cosmetic or nice something. But when that indulging moment or that treat becomes the norm, it's not treat anymore. If you have a chocolate cake every day, it's not a treat. It's not like, oh my God, I'm having a Saturday treat, coffee and a cake with a girlfriend. No, if that's your everyday thing, that's your routine. So I think I like that Saturn is there to kind of pull back those energies and kind of gently from the Pisces says, do you have boundaries around that? Because it's so easy to indulge. And I think I love what you said about opportunity, and you brought the Ferdinand story that you just said earlier. I don't even think that Ferdinand saw the bee stinging his bum as an opportunity.
No.
And he could just be just so upset. It's like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Why am I always getting stinged? That might be that Uranus energy, that kind of flash of something. And we can take it as like, why is this happening to me? Or you can run with it and win the best ball of the season award. So it's like, how do you sometimes approach opportunity? Opportunities in Jupiterian, from my perspective, they don't always come in a beautiful wrapper. So sometimes, like you say, Kimberly, to see the opportunity that Jupiter brings, you need to look for it and be ready for it. That kind of fortunate timing where you're ready and you're a place where you can receive it, and then that opportunity happens. That's the beauty of that auspiciousness of Jupiter. But if you're not looking for it, you'll never see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
And
just
that
don't speak, nobody's going to speak.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if the bee just bites you, it will be just creating the bees in your bonnet, as they call it in England, or they say it in England. That's it, and you'll just be upset and miserable.
Yeah.
Or you could just run for it.
Something else that's like kind of occurring to me, I'm thinking of a conversation I had last night with a friend and tying it into what we're talking about here. And this is going back to that relationship between all this Taurus and that South Node in Libra. And this is that when we're with others, when we're in a group, when we're with others, it's pretty easy and it can be pretty natural and innate for us to try to match our frequency, our vibration. If everyone else is quiet and we know how to read the room, we might tone it down a little. If everyone's a party and everyone's jamming, we might put on our more social face, or that mask.
Yeah.
And so I think this is also saying that we might want to think about reading the room, and is the energy of this room what is supporting me right now? Is this space, these people, this environment that I'm in what I need to be able to move forward in the rest, the coming months, the coming summers? So look at your own natal chart, and where is the Libra, the Taurus in your chart? What houses are they? And so who are the people you're connecting with in those areas of life? And is that supporting that languishing, peaceful vibe, and that's what you want? Or what you need right now to be super active and to get a bunch of products done and promoted? And so what we need is to be with people who are going to kind of help us lift our vibration to that. So I think there could be something about matching our frequency to the people around us that might be really useful.
And Uranus can be a fresh wind to not get too fixed or too stubborn in something, or too passive. That because there's a lot of feminine energy, it's a lot of fixed energy here. So it's good that we have something that's a bit like giving a fresh blow to everything. So it might help out to not get too stuck.
And I think talking about fresh energy, this is not just the moon cycle that starts. After this new moon cycle, the sun will meet Uranus and then it will meet Jupiter. So we'll have Sun, Uranus, and Sun Jupiter conjunction. And then later, when Sun moves to Gemini, it will actually conjunct with Venus as well. So we have 3 cycles starting really close to one another within that new moon period. So it's really interesting that it feels like a lot of birth is happening at the moment. And I think with those cycles as well, if we're looking at maybe a bit wider scale, for me, this is also about what new cycle can I start in my life? And I'm talking longer term, not just a month, where I can see what's happening with Earth now, what's happening with my food sustainability, what's happening with my health, what's happening with my body. Is it something that I am enjoying and I can go for another 12 years or how many years? Or is it something that I can actually change and make changes now? I feel like there is a lot of energy for putting the seeds that will grow longer than just a moon cycle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And we mentioned last time that we just had the cycle begin of Jupiter conjuncting Uranus, which happens about every 14 years, give or take. And so we're still in that play with that energy of what is it that we are planting the seeds for now? What is it we want to begin? What is that journey going to be about? That Taurian journey? What is the continent that we're going to raise up from the oceans, right? That doesn't necessarily happen, as you both mentioned earlier, in a day. That can take some time. Well, we could talk so much more, I know, about this beautiful chart. I mean, how long has it been? I don't think the entire time that we've been doing the podcast, we've had a chart that we were all three of us unanimously going, this is beautiful. This is so like
Yeah.
lovely energy. Usually, at least one of the three of us is like, yeah, but here's the shadow side. And there's not as much with this, right? Isn't that nice? But I
Yeah.
think we should, for sake of time, probably move on. And I know, Anne, you were going to open up some discussion about the fact that Mercury is conjunct Chiron over there in Aries to give that Aries energy some focus.
Yeah, so now we just said that this is such a beautiful chart and everything's so fine, and then we go into Chiron Mercury. Well, it can be fine, but do we still have something we need to work through when before we raise that continent? Is there something that might be a problem or that we need to understand when we're going forward? So when we talk about these relationships with the South Node, Libra, the new cycle values, everybody have roots. And some of, with Chiron, it's usually about the long run. It might be something that's very old that might be limiting us somehow to get forward, or that we, through Chiron's meeting with Mercury in Aries, we might have a chance to understand with our mind, to maybe want to work with it through even through writing or speaking or thinking about how maybe old traumas has affected us and what we want to do with them so they won't be limiting for us when we move forward. So they're actually on the same degree now. It's 21 degrees in Aries. And I read somewhere about Aries Chiron being like the hero for yourself, to be your own hero and take charge of the trauma and work through the trauma, and have the courage to do that, to be able to get this change on a solid ground without having the things that might have been limiting. And of course, the first step of that is to understand it and be aware of it, so it's possible to work with. But this has also been this is something that might be quite old, or something that maybe you haven't realized before, and something you might see in the process of starting. I see maybe this moon is not about doing so fast movements. It's more about like checking out what's the solid base to work from. And then we don't want to have things that might still be like problematic if we can work those through before we're proceeding towards something. What do you think about the Chiron and Mercury?
I think you're right. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's healing, but sometimes healing means I got to take that scab off the wound and look at it again and remember. And this does feel a lot like with Mercury being there. I think it's a lot about changing not only our thinking, but changing our associations, like changing the hardwiring. People talk a lot about the neural nets that we form in our brain. I know some people who are counselors who do EMDR, where you literally, if I say peanut butter and you say jelly, let's change it to where I say peanut butter and you say Nutella, right? Like changing the associations of where we instinctively automatically thinking go instead of things taking us here from that was a pain point, and so anything around it can be a trigger to maybe want to protect or wanting to take action or defend. How can we think about events that once were painful in ways that we think about them differently? We change our perception on it. And just taking what you were saying and taking it forward, we're going to see in the middle of the month that Mercury is going to move into Taurus about the 15th. And when it does, it'll square Pluto. And then by the end of the month, that Mars, hanging out in its lovely own sign of Aries, will have moved and be making the conjunction with Chiron. So there's definitely, I think, something here about using the rational mind as kind of a detective and going in and solving the mystery of where has my old pain stopped me? How do I not take the actions I need to take? How do I not move forward? Or where am I maybe being the all or nothing? Maybe I'm doing too much of the Ferdinand of I don't take action until my back's against the wall and the bee is stinging me and I go, well, what about the in between? What about embracing some Aries and learning to take consistently small, incremental, one step after another, so we can move forward? But I think a lot of this is going to be uncovering the fear hiding behind the pain that maybe is in some way holding us back. So I think it can be quite powerful. Yeah. What do you think, Monica?
I think like that Mercury in Aries wants to scream. Like there might be a bit more screaming matches. I just want to shout, and whether I want to have an argument with someone because I want to be very fiery with my words. I don't even think. I just fire the words like bullets and cut someone with them. Or whether I'll go into the middle of the forest and I'll just shout that kind of primordial scream from the bottom of myself, just to get that anger out. I mean, Mars is there in Aries as well, and it rules both of those placements, right? So there is something around potentially suppressed anger or not so much suppressed anger that we're looking in here. And I think, again, for me, Chiron in Aries, the shadow side to that is very much concentrating on my own pain. I am so poor. I am the victim. Look at me. Oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. And that's the shadow, I think, side to this placement, where we're so absorbed in our own pain and suffering that we can't see anything else. And we then respond, not even respond, actually, we react from a place of trauma. So, and we've experienced maybe so much pain that then anything, you can't believe that actually anyone or anything can be good or can be actually having your own well-being or your own good at heart. So anyone or anything that's trying to reach out, you're already kind of reacting to that. This kind of, I know it's probably a really, really bad metaphor, but that dog that is in a shelter that's been really abused, even if you're trying to help that dog now, it will bite your hand because it doesn't know that actually you're going there to feed it or to pet it or to actually help the dog heal. So you have that reactionary situation. I think Chiron in such a fiery sign, and sign so concentrated on I am, on survival, or it can create that energy where you don't recognize that the hand that is reaching out to you, it's actually hand of help, a hand of healing, hand of friendship, and you bite that hand, you kind of smack it away, and then again you just wallow in that pain. It's like, oh, I am so alone, very Aries, I'm so lonely and no one understands me, and so on. And I think, again, with Mercury there, you might be willing to express that. This might be a moment where you can express that to a therapist. This might be a moment when you actually have so much pain that you grab the phone and call the helpline or someone that will be on that other side to take you or to talk through that pain and that anger and that suffering with you. I do feel that because this is happening around such a beautiful new moon, it feels like that invitation to go into your body, into your senses, reconnect with your body, start listening to your intuition again, and recognizing that extended hand can be the one that slaps you or the one that kind of grabs your hand and pulls you out. And listening to your intuition to see the difference, getting back into your body. I think, again, when we're so in our anger, we kind of step out of our body. We step out from the moment. We stepped out from our senses. We're so enraged, we're so kind of on fire, so to speak, that we don't listen to our body. And I think this new moon invites you to step back into your five senses, reconnect, and see what is it that you want to grow that will help with that as an antidote to that fire. One kind of picture that just came to my mind as well is like, I remember when I was in the mountains and we had a bonfire, we wouldn't put out the fire with water, we would put out the fire with earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking is happening here. The Aries and the Taurus, you can put out that fire with earth, and then that fire, sorry, that ashes, that's kind of happening, and that earth creating something incredibly fertile.
Yeah. That's a beautiful metaphor, actually.
All right, so I mean, there's other things we obviously could say about Pluto and about Jupiter, but I think that covers the highlights, the things that stood out in our kind of preparing conversation that we had. Those were the major themes. You guys ready to move into tips and tricks, or is there any final thoughts burning that you wanted to share? No. All right. Well, I'm going to go first if that's okay because it kind of dovetails nicely with what you were just saying, Monica. And my tip for the new moon in Taurus is play with your food. This is an invitation for us to, I think, Monica, you used that phrase earlier. It's an invitation for us to really get in touch with our senses, with loving living this life, of being a physical being. And I would encourage you to find ways of playing with your food, and that could be as simple as eating your food outside on the patio, or maybe take it one step further and have a picnic, right? That idea of giving ourselves time to enjoy, to make it feel more like I'm in the moment rather than just rushing through. Personally, I'm planning to do a dinner where we take our food and we build an image of the goddess on the table and then dive in and eat her. That's what I do every year on the new moon in Taurus, and it brings me such joy. The idea of being creative, of the sensual, tangible experience of touching and holding the food, of really enjoying the juicy fruits of the season, and just enjoying this time of year. So, and it also puts us in touch, I think, more with our body, recognizing the taste of something, the smell of something. It's sort of an opportunity for mindful eating, which I know is something a lot of people in the meditation community and the mindfulness community are always advocating. That really just being in touch with the body and allowing the body to receive this energy. So that's mine. What about you guys?
I was laughing because I had very similar tip
Ah!
I written down.
Ah!
So when I was going through my mindfulness training, this is what we were doing, that mindful eating. And what
Mm,
it really is, it's such a Turian thing because it's involving all your senses. How often do we just gobble something from the container? The delivery guy just brought something. You didn't even know if you had a Chinese, Indian, or pizza, but just gobble quickly, watching TV, not really paying attention. And what the mindfulness does is really what you were just saying, just having that moment when you stop. I remember when they fed us raisin and they my first exercise was with the raisin and I'm not the fan. But you can do that with anything. So I think second exercise we did it with strawberries, slightly different. But it's the moment where you engage all your senses. You look at the food. Does it look appetizing? Is it beautiful? Is it in a shape of a goddess? Have you ever seen the strawberry from like a really close angle, like all those little things on her? And then you smell it, you enjoy the scent of your food, and then you bite into it and you enjoy the texture and all the, and you take that so slow because you're trying to engage the whole body. And it's incredible experience when you can slow down and really take all your senses onto your food. What it really showed me is how some of the food that I thought was amazing, like some of those takeaways that I eat, it's really unappetizing. Like it doesn't look good. It doesn't kind of necessarily. It might be tasty, but is it more that I'm addicted to that that takeaway, or is it actually that it's beautiful presentation? So yeah, I had a very similar, Kimberly, to you. But what I also kind of like, if we can change, not change, but if I can actually get another one, is the question that came to me earlier when we were talking and about the tip as well. Is like, what is it that on this new moon I want to grow? And when we were talking just now about that, putting that earth onto a fire and creating that ash and earth mix in something that can be fertile to grow, it reminded me of my friend little boy. And he came to her one day and explained that in a nursery they were taught how to deal with anger. So they were told that if they're really really angry, like really really angry, they need to go somewhere where there's like earth, onto playground or onto like to the park, and they have to imagine that they spitting out all that anger from them into the palm of their hand, like cupping the anger and then putting it into earth. And I thought
oh,
it was such a beautiful image. And I think there is a magic into it. There is magic of trying to get all that anger into your hands and putting it into earth and grounding it and grounding that fire and say, okay, how can I grow from that? How can I learn from that disappointment, from that anger, from that hurt that I experienced, that Chiron and Aries? How can I utilize that beautiful energy of Taurus that we are in and actually grow something beautiful from the ashes of that pain and of that disappointment?
I'm going to go back to the earlier question we had, or the what we mentioned about winning the lottery. And I would like you to imagine that you won like $20 million. What would you do? And I mean, list the things. What are the things you would like to do? And after a few things, then just take away the money and do them anyway. So that's my.
That is fabulous. Oh, that is so fabulous.
That's a lovely one. Yeah. I thought when you said lottery that you're going to give us the numbers. That's a tip. Just play 5, 11, 47.
Yeah. We can do that in the next podcast.
I'm feeling very satiated. I'm feeling very comfortable and grounded. And I'm so thankful and grateful that the three of us got to spend this time together and that all of our viewers are here joining in the chat. So thank you so much. As always, we love to hear comments. We love discussion. So put some posts on our YouTube page, or you can email to us. Let's just talk about, what does this Taurus new moon bring up for you? We'd love to know if anything we talked about resonates for you, or if it's something different that you are dealing with. So let's keep the conversation going. And again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. So if you haven't already subscribed or hit the notification bell, be sure to do that, so you'll be able to join us when we come back at the end of the month to talk about the full moon in Sagittarius. Until then, have a great 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you for joining us in this week's AstroChat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.